I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2015 March 11th Legal and Finance Committee for the City of Rapid City. The first order of business is the roll call and determination of a quorum. Here. Thank you. Up next is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have any additions or deletions from the agenda? Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. So moved. Motion by Laurenti, second by Nordstrom. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Up next is general public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to discuss and express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken on at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except replacement of the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I currently have no speaker requests for general public comment. Does anybody wish to speak at this moment? Moving on to consent items numbers 1 through 10. Now we're going to open public comment on items 1 through 10. I have one speaker request form that's standing by for questions. Other than that, anybody else wish to speak on items 1 through 10? I have no further speaker request forms. I'm going to close public comment on those items and now go to items 1 through 10. Does anybody wish to remove anything? Entertain a motion to approve the consent items. So moved. Second. Motion by Laurenti, second by Nordstrom. Any further discussion on those items? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're now on to public non-consent items 11 through 15. Item number 12, we have Ms. Suzette Cooney. Would like to speak, ma'am?
Thank you and good afternoon. I am Suzette Cooney, the membership coordinator for the Rapid City Downtown Association. Part of our mission is to advocate for our downtown businesses. With the new parking ordinance and the staggered parking tickets, it was brought to our attention as an organization that is causing some I guess, concern as far as how to maintain local clientele base and shopping and spending money in downtown. They're concerned about losing sales because once people get to that $25 ticket point, it's basically closing the door for 90 days to downtown and spending time and money in the downtown community. So we just appreciate the opportunity for you guys to take it into consideration as far as an opportunity to kind of reevaluate it. The tiered system seems to be working to get those habitual offenders to be looking for different places to park. But with that being said, the big concern is losing those customers that come regularly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. I assume you'll stand by for questions. If there is any from the council members? Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, any further no one else, anybody else speak on any items, 1 through 15, 15 through, 11 through 15, excuse me. Does anybody wish to speak on those items? Sir, did you wish to speak on any of the items?
I would like to on
sure.
that.
Go ahead and step up and you can hand it out to her afterwards.
Okay. My name's Kurt Small. I've had the privilege of owning the Elks Theater for the last 8 years and operating it for the last 21. And I wanted to speak to the issue that Suzette was talking about. The way that it's set up now for my business, a quick summary, I seat about twice as many people as there are metered parking lots in Rapid City. I have just over 100,000 people a year come to my theater. Nearly half of that is during the weekdays, during the summer. My average presentation is 2.5 hours long. It puts my customers in a very bad situation. I think the 3-hour change or the additional extra hour would help alleviate that problem for us and keep my customers coming back downtown.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak on items 11 through 15? Close public comment on items 11 through 15, and I'll move on to item number 11, which is Mike Miles' report on an all-nighter softball tournament and request for approved tournament to be held June 12th through 13th, 2015. Is Mike currently available? Entertain a motion.
Move to acknowledge.
We're looking more for a motion to acknowledge or move to council without recommendation. What do you think there, Joel?
Move to approve.
Second. See it. A motion approved by second by Nordstrom and recognize Joel Landine.
Thank you. I think they didn't show up today because they put this in every year, and I don't think it's been controversial in the past. But I guess if you want them to come, we can let them know to be sure to be here Monday night.
Okay. Well, the motion is to approve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Joel. Item number 12 is Nordstrom. Alderman Nordstrom has a consideration of a 3-hour parking of non-metered downtown areas. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's several items that we need to talk about within this discussion, and if I can, Suzette, if you can come up and start helping me out with the presentation, but essentially there needs to be a few things to be accomplished that we need to take a look at. Number one, there is a new ordinance been put on the books. I believe it was February when we finally adopted it.
Correct.
So there's some concerns about changing the ordinance at this point and so quickly right behind it. What we need to do also is, have you got a concept about what kind of, shall I say, boundaries of where we're going to be looking at? Because what we need to do is study this a little bit further.
Sure. The original intent that was brought forward to the advocacy committee of the Downtown Association was any non-metered area to change it from 2 hours to 3 hours to accommodate the needs of the local clientele base that do shop regularly. There's a huge fear that those people won't want to come downtown after they receive a $25 ticket. Quite frankly, that's once they are in that cycle, it's basically shutting down downtown to them as a place to spend money and increase sales tax for 90 days. And that was brought to us by the concerns of business owners.
And I thank you for, I don't know that the link made it to the today's presentation,
Sure.
but your petitions that you visited with the downtown owners
Correct.
of different businesses. Thank you for doing that.
It was amazing, the response. They did embrace the $25 ticket, the tiered ticket concept because of the frequent violators, but they were really super excited about the opportunity for you guys to consider the 3 hours. And overwhelmingly, the clientele base that overheard us talking about it were super excited too, and were begging to sign it as well, but we didn't let them do that, but they wanted to, so.
Understand. The other area of interest for me is, I'm asking this going to be to the staff for a little more information, and specifically the area of 2-hour meters versus the 3-hour non-metered areas, and what kind of an effect that will have upon this proposal. So any advanced thoughts or preliminary thinking about that?
Well, I've been having some conversations with some people that are actually directors of like parking commissions and stuff in communities similar to the size of Rapid, and they understood with how our downtown is made up and the types of businesses that we had, they thought 3 hours did make sense, but they also had some suggestions on how to make that work, which I haven't had the opportunity to really sift through, but there are some opportunities maybe that would make it a win-win potentially by changing that to an additional hour. So.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then have you got readily available information about some of the businesses that have considered moving out or have moved out of the downtown district to get away from the parking situation? And I'm thinking of at least one right now off the
like
top of my head.
Headlines Academy moving. They moved because of the parking situation. I don't know specifically if people have moved because of that other than Headlines. That's one that really sticks out in mind because that was when I was working for the Rapid City Downtown Association before when they made that move. But like currently within the last 7 months, has anybody moved? No.
Mystique Edge?
Mystique Edge did move, yes. I guess, yep. They did move, yep.
That was another one I
Yep.
was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah, and when she actually did sign the petition, and she goes, "Why didn't you guys do this 10 years ago?" So she was super excited about it for like the betterment of the entire downtown area.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Small, if I can have you answer one or two questions for me. You mentioned something that had to do with the length of presentations, the movies that you have at your facility, plus any other events that are taking place that would be longer than as we know, the 2-hour parking?
Well, we host a variety of events. The first one that comes to mind is Kirk Funeral Homes does a special presentation several times a year that's free and open to the public. It does take place during the weekdays. They have currently made an arrangement with the city where the parking tickets that their attendees receive are submitted to the city, and and dealt with that way. If that answers your question.
It does, yeah, because I was thinking that you held some other, for example, the town hall meetings, such as the information meetings about summer nights, and I was just curious if there was any other events as well, so I think that answers my question.
And we do open up the facility for the RCDA or any other groups that need a large meeting space. Typically, those are during the weekdays. The average length of those, I don't have that information to give to you right now. I would suspect that they're exceeding that 2-hour limit, though.
Thank you. And at this stage, that answers some of my questions, but again, I'm going to be asking staff to consider doing a study. We just haven't figured out how long the time frame is and what the boundaries are. It's part of the data that I would be interested in is the comparison with the 3 hours versus the 2 hours and what kind of issues that presents. So there's some other things we need to take into consideration. But I like the idea, and I'm glad you folks brought it forward. Thank you. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Laurenti, please.
Thank you, Chair. Suzette, if you could come up to the podium, please. I have a couple of questions for you, just so that I'm clear. And of course, we're going to get information and do our study and make a more informed decision. But I had a question about, you spoke on number 12 as for the change. How many businesses have come to you that believe this is going to affect their business, or it currently affects their business because it's only 2 hours?
2 hours historically has been something, parking has been a bone of contention for the downtown district for gosh, longer than I've been alive. So I think that with, this is the first time we found something that kind of seemed to be palatable. Like you saw in the attachment that I sent yesterday, there was over 60 people that were business owners that are super excited about the idea of you guys considering the 3 hours. And that, I just ran out of time. I could probably get you a lot more.
And then my other question, thank you, is you also spoke about the fines. You're saying this dovetails with the fact that they're staying in these 2 hour spots too long, or?
No, I know that there's people that, it's just like the 2 hour shuffle would switch from 2 hour to 3 hour, and those people I think would still continue to have, to be those violators, and they'll still get the $25 fee, is how I think that would not cease to exist as far as an income generating item. Because, there are people that work downtown that abuse the privilege of the 2 hour shuffle. I think that that's not something that's a secret, but I think that no matter what the time frame is, they'll continue to do that.
Okay, and that's what I was thinking, because
Sure.
It's my understanding that to get to the $25 level, they've had to be on their 4th violation.
Yes.
So, okay. I just want to make sure that that's where you were going with that you were, if you were dovetailing those two things together. So I appreciate
the concern with that and is the frequent shopper eventually getting to that $25 ticket, and are we deterring and saying, no, we don't want your sales and we don't want your sales tax revenue coming to downtown? That's a huge risk with this current.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned at how they're getting to 4 violations and then going and parking in this and then violating again, that there's a concern. Anyway,
Okay.
I appreciate your
Yep.
input. I think that's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ron
Well,
Wyfenbach.
actually, Thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you, Ron, for deference there. I'd like to ask the Finance Director a question on this as well.
Please.
And maybe just something that I'm sure she's going to be involved in the research of the information we're going to need anyway. So at first blush, Pauline, what do you think there's some, not necessarily snowball effect, but connecting issue with, of course, we have bonds we have to meet for parking, so I'm always concerned about that with parking when we make changes. And I just want to make sure that if we go from 2 to 3, is there some snowball effect with metered positions because of the length? You know what I mean? Is there going to be some sort of thing that that extra hour affects our ability to meet our bond requirements for parking? So,
thank you for the question. Actually, they're all interconnected. Even the parking tickets in the 2 hours, moving from a 2 hour to a 3 hour, would still be interconnected, whether it looks like it on the surface or not. Also, people may start not parking in a metered spot if they can come to work at 9 o'clock and leave at noon for lunch and come back at 1 and leave again. I will tell you that, and I know this really wasn't part of your question, but I will tell you that I looked at the revenue for the month of February in 2015 compared to 2014 to look to see what kind of effect the ordinance change with the tiered tickets has, and the amount of revenue generated by tickets and boots in that same 1 month period dropped in half in 1 month. And granted, then there's a lot of the free tickets going out. We actually had somebody send us a check for $0 as kind of a little joke because he got a courtesy ticket. But it will have an effect. And we did just refinance our bonds. We have over $2 million left on the bonds. We still have our coverage requirements. And I'm telling you, I would be very hesitant to mess with this ordinance again until we know the true effect, possibly of a year on this, to see if the habits of people parking change, because that was part of the intent as well, was to change those habits. So until we know the full effect and what it will do to our coverage ratios, I would just caution you seriously about making any additional changes.
So February, just to clarify, just to follow up, February of 14 compared to February this year, significant drop.
Half.
Wow.
And
Okay.
one more thing, we have had meetings just as late as this last Monday between the PD, the code or the parking enforcement, and I about looking at some long-term solutions. And one of the things that's going to be brought forward and part of this discussion is having the meters on Kansas City Street between 6th and 7th all be 10-hour meters. There's a variety of different meter lengths there, anywhere from 2 to 10. Some of the 10 hours are used all the time. Some of the shorter ones aren't. And so hopefully we can still start pushing people into those longer-term parking areas. There's also, even a block further, there's free parking all day if you wanted to stay there. So we need to advertise it better. We need to get the word out better. The maps are confusing. We need businesses to tell their clientele where they can park for long-term. When I would make an appointment at Mystique Edge, they would say, now, you know there's only 2-hour parking. Make sure you park somewhere else if your appointment's going to take longer than 2 hours. They're very good about telling their customers that. Not all businesses are doing that. So it's a joint effort between the businesses and the cities to get the word out as to where the long-term parking is available.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe Mr. Laurenti covered the bonding question. That's always a question, obviously. We were hoping by this point in time we'd have a parking ramp downtown. That's obviously not happened. So I understand the pressures that it puts on downtown parking. I've been in on this. I have no interest, zero interest in doing any sort of study on doing parking downtown. I know one thing about running a business. And the best person to run that business is the person that's running the business. When we talk to the Elks Theater guy, I understand where you're coming from to try to have a movie theater, and I think that thing's awesome. But there's probably a need for 3-hour parking for you. But maybe the person next to you has a need for 15-minute parking. These are all the concerns that came up when we went through, I'd say, years or multiple. I mean, I still probably have the parking study that was done, and what it came down to was the reality that the downtown people didn't want to face, and that was meters. They don't want meters on Main and St. Joe. It causes this situation where the 2-hour, 3-hour, or whatever, the fact of the matter is everybody around those areas has meters. So without the meters, you're unfortunately going to deal with some of these issues of 2 hours versus 3 hours and those types of things. And so, but I do know what also came up in that meeting was having sections, because if you had meters, then you could actually make those meters appropriate to the businesses that were in that block, and having basically the downtown district manage those needs, because the people that run the businesses down there, they know what their needs are. The problem is to do a blanket is tough. But I think after talking to Zette, she mentioned that she'd had some contacts with some people who has some other ideas about the 3 hours. I'm open to hearing those, so if there's a chance between now and Monday that you can get together with some of those and bring them, because the rest of the council, the two questions they're going to have, number one is how does it affect bonding, because that's important, because there's bonds out there that are set, and unfortunately, we pay for some of those bonds with people who are violators. Even though we don't like them, just keep in mind they're paying for your parking spots. I mean, in a lot of the downtown businesses, that's part of the deal. So if that being said, I think, the discussion's good. I have no interest in having a study and wasting anybody's time. But I do have some interest if there's some opportunities that there's a way to rejuvenate the revenue and still meet the needs of the downtown, because those are the people that clearly understand what's going on down there. I have no idea. I don't work down there. I don't own a business down there. But it's important that we understand that you guys do, and we're here to help you with that. So that being said, that's all I have to say.
I currently have no motion. Richie Nordstrom.
Move to acknowledge.
I have a motion by Weifenbach, second by Laurenti to acknowledge, and Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
That pretty much does away with the motion that I was intending to do, but I'll go along with the acknowledgement so that we can at least have this remaining on the calendars and maybe as late as February of next year, but I don't know that we're collecting the correct amount of information now, and I would like to have some additional information in that study. So and I'm not going for an outside study, it's just an internal information that the staff can provide. So I'll go along with the acknowledgement, but it pretty much limit us to the amount of discussion we can have next February.
Okay. Without further discussion, I would like to make, will you, Mr. Weifenbach?
Mr. Chair, I'm a little bit confused on.
His motion is acknowledge.
Yeah, and so they're still going to come Monday. It'll be on the agenda.
Yeah, it'll be on the agenda as well.
Because I'm sure our colleagues are going to have more questions. It doesn't really limit anything.
Yeah, it's on a consent item anyway, so it'll be discussed on Monday night.
We're just going to continue the conversation Monday, and giving Suzette a chance to bring some more information.
That's my correct interpretation, I hope.
My colleagues would like some information from the staff. They've always made themselves available to me. If you ask the questions, they'll answer them.
Okay.
Thanks.
If I may just ask a couple questions myself real quick. The new parking lot that's going over by in the tennis courts, when will that be available? Does anybody tell me that's going to be done? Mr. Sefner, if you could approach the microphone, sir. Please identify yourself, even though you're probably more well recognized than the rest of us up here.
Dan Sefner, Destination Rapid City. The parking lot, I just met with Rod Johnson yesterday, as a matter of fact. It's moving forward, but we're probably looking at 2016. There's a lot of restrictions. That tennis court over there was built with some funding, national, federal, and you can't touch it without a release from the federal government. This was something I was unaware of.
What's this, historic tennis court, or what is it?
No, but it was built with certain funding, and maybe, Pauline, you can answer that, because you're looking and nodding your head. But it was built with certain funding through the federal government, which was approved, and this just reared its head, like, recently. So we are in a definite holding pattern. Maybe we can start demo sometime this summer, maybe. Our goal truly now is to do the project in 2016.
I sure do love bureaucracy. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. I'll just go along with the motion to acknowledge. And everybody, make sure you stand up for that historic tennis court. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, folks. We'll continue this discussion on Monday night, I assume. Thank you for coming out. Okay, item number 13 is introduction and first reading of ordinance 6036 to amend provisions concerning appointments to the Rapid City Planning Commission by amending sections 2.60.020 and 2.60.030 to the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Nordstrom, second by Laurenti. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14 is introduction, first reading of ordinance 6031 to authorize Planning Commission to act as a zoning board of adjustment and by amending section 17.54.010 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion by Nordstrom, second by Laurenti to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 15 is introduction and first reading of ordinance 6037 to change the name of Rapid Street between 3rd and 5th Street to Nico Street and between 6th Street and Mount Rushmore Road to Apolda Street by amending section 10.48.010, 12.08.050, and 17.36.010 of the Rapid Municipal Code. Motion, any motions? Chair recognizes Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm not sure who I would need to ask. Is it community planning?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. My question is, has a notice gone out to people who live in these areas? Obviously, they have to do some changing with the post office, and
Commercial.
it's all commercial.
It looks like Carla is headed up to
Carla's
the
up.
Okay.
platform to answer your question.
Very
Sorry
good.
about that.
I've been told by Brad that there is no address on Nico Street, the one that's being changed currently. It tracks behind Tuscany Square, and there's no addresses on that particular street.
Okay.
As you know, Apolda has already been changed, and we're just cleaning up the ordinance related to Apolda. So that occurred several years ago.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Motion approved by Nordstrom, second by, we have a second? Second by Laurenti. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn?
Move adjourn. Second.
Motion by Wyffenbach, second by Laurenti. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are now adjourned.